Junior. I'm so deeply sorry. I wish I could remember what happened. I'm just so sorry. I'm heartbroken.
Get ready for courtroom drama as we look into some jaw-dropping Karen meltdowns that left judges speechless. From outrageous interruptions to full-blown screaming matches, these Karens pushed the limits of patience. Will their courtroom antics sway the outcome? Or will justice be served in full force? Let's explore moments where Karens went completely crazy in court. Melissa Hardwick. The courtroom is typically a place of restraint, where emotions simmer beneath the surface but rarely erupt. Yet, in 2011, Melissa Hardwick defied that expectation in a way that left everyone in the room stunned. She was already in a precarious position, facing charges of domestic assault against her estranged husband. A tense situation, no doubt, but it was about to get a lot worse. It all began as the judge delivered a seemingly routine sentence for contempt of court. Melissa had disrupted the proceedings with outbursts, and the judge, trying to maintain order, sentenced her to a mere 10 days in jail. But what happened next was far from routine. As soon as the words left the judge's mouth, something snapped in Hardwick. Without a second thought, she lunged toward the bench in a shocking attempt to grab the judge. For a split second, the entire courtroom was frozen in disbelief. This wasn't just an angry defendant. This was a woman on the edge, and her impulsive action made that clear. The judge, momentarily taken aback, could only watch as Melissa came at her with all the fury and frustration she had been bottling up. But before she could reach her target, court officers acted quickly. They restrained Hardwick before any real harm could be done, but the damage had already been done. What had begun as a relatively small sentence quickly spiraled into something much larger. As the order was restored in the court, Judge Edwards, who was not visibly injured, told the court that Melissa would be charged for the threat she made open in court. She further reiterated that the proceedings will continue, but with a new judge. Melissa was now faced with 3 charges, which included third-degree terroristic threatening, intimidating a participant in the legal process, and resisting arrest. The contempt charge, which would have only cost her 10 days of freedom, now ballooned into a 120-day sentence. Taylor Shabusiness. Courtrooms often see intense moments, but what unfolded with Taylor Shabusiness was nothing short of chilling. Taylor, a 25-year-old mother, found herself at the center of one of the most gruesome cases to hit Green Bay, Wisconsin. Her crime? The meth-fueled murder and mutilation of her lover, Shad Therian, in a way that defied even the most vivid imaginations. The details are not just shocking, they're terrifying. It all began one September night in 2022. Shabusiness and Therian, both high on methamphetamines, engaged in what started as a consensual encounter, but soon turned deadly. In the middle of their drug-fueled haze, Taylor made a decision that would change her life forever. She strangled Therian to death during sex with a chain, but what happened afterward would shock even the most seasoned investigators. As if the murder wasn't brutal enough, Taylor mutilated his body in unimaginable ways. His dismembered head was found in a bucket, carelessly left for his mother to find. It was a discovery no parent should ever have to make. In the basement of the house, authorities later found Shad's dismembered torso, organs, and other body parts, marking the crime scene as one of the most disturbing in recent history. After the incident, she contacted the police out of shock. The courtroom was filled with a tense silence as the case unfolded. Shabusiness sat there, wearing an anti-spitting guard, her demeanor eerily calm for someone at the center of such a horrific crime. This wasn't the first time her behavior raised eyebrows. In earlier court sessions, she had become violent, jumped out of her seat, and launched at her defense counsel. The deputies sprung into action immediately, held her down, and order was restored while she was kept in a holding cell. When the court reconvened after the attack, her counsel put in a motion to withdraw as Shabusiness's attorney. The judge granted his plea, and she got another attorney. Her unpredictability made every moment of the trial feel like it could spiral out of control at any second. When it came time for Judge Thomas Walsh to hand down her sentence, there was little doubt about what was coming. Taylor had been convicted of 3 felony counts: first-degree intentional homicide, mutilation of a corpse, and third-degree sexual assault. The charges alone painted a picture of the horrific night that led to Shad's death. The tension in the room grew thicker as the judge asked her if she had anything to say before being sentenced. The anticipation hung in the air. Would she apologize? Show remorse? But Taylor's response was chilling in its simplicity. "There isn't," she muttered. No emotion, no plea, just silence, as if she was already resigned to her fate. She was sentenced to life in prison without parole for killing and dismembering her boyfriend, Aileen Wuornos. Aileen Wuornos walked into the courtroom, her presence unsettling everyone. She was no stranger to attention, but what came next shocked everyone. This wasn't just any trial. It was the moment when a woman would be dubbed the first female serial killer to match the FBI's profile. It was a title no one wanted, but Aileen embraced it in a way that left the entire court in disbelief. She had been a prostitute along Florida's highways, leading a life that many couldn't understand. But between 1981 and 1991, her seemingly typical existence took a terrifying turn, leaving 6 middle-aged men dead. All of them had one thing in common. They made the mistake of picking up Wuornos on the road. She didn't try to escape justice, though. Aileen admitted her guilt without hesitation. "I was sentenced to death. I need to die for the killing of those people," she boldly stated in a 2001 interview. The courtroom was filled with tension, anticipation, and a sense of dread as Aileen faced her fate. During the trial, she was unlike any defendant you'd expect. Rather than showing remorse or pleading for mercy, she was defiant, unapologetic, and angry. The jury sat, waiting for her response to the 6 death sentences handed down. But instead of silence, she unleashed a fury of insults. She called the jurors scumbag and delivered a chilling warning to the judge: she would kill again. Everything about her demeanor was cold, and her words cut through the tension in the room. "Everything they said about me was so full of lies," she claimed after the trial, her voice filled with rage. "None of that stuff was true. I am totally sane. I didn't do drugs," she continued. Each time her verdict was read out in court, she had a more intense reaction to match the verdict. Oftentimes, she will jump out of her seat in rage, say unprintable words, and even make hand gestures to the jury. However, after 10 years on death row, before her death, she confessed to the crimes, agreeing that she did kill all the men for money and not in self-defense. She also agreed that she was a serial killer. In her words, she said, "I would like to confess before I go into that execution chamber," as she would not want to die in the execution chamber as a liar. Aileen was executed in October 2002. Kushantai H. Short. Kushantai Short's lawsuit against Richard Jordan took a bizarre turn during a Zoom court session in Flint, Michigan, when she filed for $10,000 in damages for emotional distress after Jordan failed to show up for a date. Short, citing her mother's recent passing, claimed Jordan's no-show caused her undue emotional harm. However, the situation quickly spiraled out of control as Short became combative with Judge Herman Marable Jr., leading to a heated argument that overshadowed the case itself. The chaos ensued as Judge Marable tried to explain to Short that her case, which was for intentional infliction of emotional distress, was not suited for district court and needed to be transferred to circuit court. Despite his attempts to clarify, Short consistently interrupted and challenged his statements, often yelling over him. At one point, Judge Marable removed his shield mask in frustration and raised his voice to explain basic legal principles, including the definition of perjury, a point of confusion for Short, who insisted Jordan had committed the offense. Short's refusal to listen, combined with her misunderstanding of legal procedures, led to a back-and-forth exchange with the judge. When Judge Marable ordered the case to be transferred, Short continued to argue, insisting she knew the legal terms better than the court. After being muted due to her outbursts, she jumped off the Zoom call. It was later revealed that Short has a history of filing frivolous lawsuits, including a $300 million case against the Flint Police Department and one against AT&T, both of which were dismissed. Short now faces the responsibility of paying court fees for the transfer, with the case likely to be dismissed if she fails to do so within 56 days. Meanwhile, Jordan could only express disbelief at the absurdity of the situation. Penelope Soto. Penelope Soto, an 18-year-old from Miami, found herself in a whirlwind of viral fame and legal consequences after a disrespectful encounter with Circuit Judge Jorge Rodriguez Chomat. Soto was originally arrested for possession of Xanax, a prescription anti-anxiety drug often misused as a recreational high. Her court appearance, however, is what truly captured her attention. She was charged with unlawful possession of prescription drugs. In her initial court hearing, after her bond was set at $5,000, Soto responded by laughing and flipping off the judge, causing an uproar. Throughout the exchange, Soto appeared amused, flicking her hair and making light of the situation. Judge Rodriguez Chomat, clearly displeased, increased her bond to $10,000 for contempt of court. However, Soto, on hearing her new sentence, was shocked and said, "Really?" Thereafter, she made an obscene gesture and used profane language. The judge called her back the third time and asked if she really did use the profane language, which she didn't deny. The judge slammed her with an extra 30-day jail term. However, the story had a new ending when Soto returned to court days later with a tearful apology. She admitted to being under the influence of Xanax and alcohol during the initial incident and expressed deep remorse, apologizing not only to the court, but also to her family. Her emotional appeal, visibly more somber and reflective than her previous behavior, led Judge Rodriguez Chomat to drop the 30-day jail sentence after recognizing her genuine regret. Mitchell Blair. Mitchell Blair's story is one that sends shivers down the spine. In 2015, this 35-year-old mother from Detroit was convicted of a crime so heinous that it left many in disbelief. She is facing charges of first-degree murder for the death of her daughter and felony murder for the death of her son. But how did we get here? In 2015, in her home in Detroit Martin Park neighborhood, during an eviction process in Mitchell's apartment, a shocking discovery was made while they were removing the furniture. The authorities carrying out the eviction were met by a strong stench. In curiosity, they continued to search till the smell led them to a white freezer in a corner. When they opened it, they found the frozen corpse of a child wrapped in a blanket. Further inspection led to another discovery, another child wrapped similarly to the one previously discovered. It was until later that the corpses were identified as Blair's children. Blair was arrested and taken to court. She was found guilty of murdering her two children, 13-year-old Stoney Blair and 9-year-old Stephen Barry. During the investigation, Blair reportedly confessed to killing her children, claiming it was out of fear they would become bad people. In her words, she said, "I don't feel remorse in killing the demons," while referring to her dead children. While she was questioned, she said she felt no remorse and wouldn't hesitate to do it again. During her trial, she maintained that Stoney and Stephen were sexually assaulting her youngest son. However, no evidence was found to support her claims. This rationale left many baffled and searching for answers about how someone could reach such a point. Blair's life seemed to take a dark turn leading up to the tragic events. Reports indicate that she had a tumultuous upbringing and struggled with various personal issues, which may have contributed to her actions. However, nothing could justify the horrific nature of what transpired in her home. During her trial, Mitchell Blair displayed a range of emotions, but perhaps one of the most striking moments came when she was convicted. As the verdict was read, she reportedly showed no remorse, even going so far as to shout at the judge and express disdain for the courtroom proceeding. She was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. Subscribers, pick. Imagine the tension in a courtroom as a judge hands down an unheard-of sentence, 964 years in prison. But what could possibly trigger such a mind-blowing decision? In the image, the judge's face is twisted in fury, while the convict, a Karen, looks equally enraged and unrepentant. It's clear something went terribly wrong. Was it the gravity of the offense that led to such a harsh sentence? Or was it the wild, uncontrollable outburst from the Karen that sent the judge over the edge? Could her crazy courtroom antics have sealed her fate for centuries behind bars? What do you think? Was it the crime or her reaction that resulted in this jaw-dropping sentence? Let us know in the comment section below. Shayna Hubers. Shayna Hubers, a 27-year-old from Newport, Kentucky, was sentenced to 40 years in prison without the possibility of parole for the first 20 years. This was for the 2012 murder of her boyfriend, Ryan Poston. When she turned up for her hearing at the Campbell County Circuit Court, she was charged with 1 count of murder for shooting her boyfriend in the head 6 times. Now, to the interesting part. What was the offense of her boyfriend? He was about to dump her for a Miss USA contestant. Back in 2011, Ryan Poston met Hubers on Facebook, and they started dating thereafter. Their relationship wasn't without drama, as they were always caught in the middle of a fight over trivial things, like insecurity rising from her low self-esteem. This went on for 18 months, until Poston found Audrey Bolt, Miss Ohio, for the Miss USA contestant. They planned for a date, one that would never happen. Shayna discovered his plans through Facebook messages, and this infuriated her and ignited a rage of jealousy in her. She became so desperate to have her boyfriend or no one else would. In her words, she got angry, picked the gun on the floor, and shot him. During her trial, she maintained that the incident was out of self-defense. The prosecution labeled her actions as an execution after she fired 4 shots and then paused to fire 2 more to finish him off. Despite her claims of self-defense and allegations that Poston had been abusive, prosecutors argued Hubers killed him because he wanted to end their relationship. Evidence, including text messages in which Hubers fantasized about killing Poston, supported the prosecution's argument. While the judge was reading out her sentence, he stated that not for one moment did Hubers show remorse for her actions. He further stressed that Hubers did not apologize to the family of the deceased, who were always present in court. On the part of Ryan Poston's family, including his father Jay Poston, he expressed deep anguish throughout the trial. In a powerful statement, Jay condemned both Hubers and the defense for the continued violation of his son's dignity, particularly criticizing the media coverage that broadcast images of his son's body. He also shared the pain of losing his son and the impact it had on their lives, contrasting Hubers' continued presence with their permanent loss. Hubers will have to serve 20 years before she is eligible for parole, meaning her earliest opportunity for release would be in 2032. Melissa Carone. Melissa Carone, Rudy Giuliani's star witness at the Michigan election fraud hearing, became a viral sensation due to her erratic testimony and unusual behavior. Melissa Carone was an IT contract worker for a voting machine company after the 2020 elections, which were wrought with claims of fraud and corruption. Carone, in her testimony in court, was full of comical remarks, as if to relieve the audience. Her overconfident, sometimes slurred, and often confrontational demeanor struck a chord with the court viewers. She made a lot of joking assertions that the results from the poll were rigged. In her words, she said that she saw 1,000 dead people vote in the poll. She interrupted Republican Rep. Stephen Johnson, implying he might be involved in some kind of impropriety regarding the poll book irregularities she claimed existed. Despite Giuliani's attempts to calm her down, Carone's performance overshadowed the hearing. Carone claimed to have witnessed numerous fraudulent actions at a vote-counting center in Detroit. She further claimed that the number of people on the polls surpassed the registered voters by a wide margin. She stressed further that her life was completely destroyed by the Democrats because of her testimony. She recounted that she lost family and friends and was even threatened in the process. Her allegations were deemed unfit to make a case because of the irregularities contained in her testimonies. Marlena Pavlos Hackney. Marlena Pavlos Hackney, the owner of Marlena's Bistro and Pizzeria in Holland, Michigan, made headlines in 2021 when she was jailed for defying COVID-19 restrictions. She spent 4 days behind bars and was fined $15,000 for keeping her restaurant open, despite having her food license suspended. Pavlos Hackney argued that the pandemic-related orders violated her constitutional rights, especially after the Michigan Supreme Court ruled Governor Gretchen Whitmer's executive orders unconstitutional. Her legal battle continued on Thursday, September 7th, when she appeared for a second time before the Michigan Court of Appeals. Pavlos Hackney's attorney, Helen Brinkman, argued that once the governor's executive order was struck down, the charges should have been reversed. However, State Assistant Attorney General Laura Lamore countered that the issue was not the executive order, but the fact that Pavlos Hackney continued operating without a valid food license, which led to the contempt charge. Pavlos Hackney's case has been in and out of court since 2021, with multiple rulings affirming the contempt of court orders against her. In October 2022, the Court of Appeals upheld both contempt orders, but sent one back to the trial court for reconsideration of a fine. Pavlos Hackney's fight, centered on claims of constitutional violations, continues to draw attention, especially among political figures and supporters. Her restaurant was eventually allowed to reopen in September 2021, and it became a focal point for political events, including visits from Republican candidates Tudor Dixon and Ryan Kelly, the latter facing charges for his involvement in the January 6th U.S. Capitol insurrection. Jordi Arias. The Arizona Court of Appeals upheld Jordi Arias's murder conviction and life sentence for the 2008 killing of her ex-boyfriend, Travis Alexander. Arias had appealed, claiming she was denied a fair trial due to trial publicity and alleged misconduct by the prosecutor. Arias, convicted in 2013 and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole in 2015, argued that extensive media coverage and the prosecutor's conduct impacted her right to a fair trial. The court's ruling acknowledged that while the prosecutor acted inappropriately by being hostile to witnesses whose testimonies conflicted with the state's case, the evidence against Arias was overwhelming. The court found that no reasonable juror could have acquitted her given the evidence, which included clear indications that Arias had planned the murder. The court also concluded that the publicity surrounding the trial did not adversely affect the juror's ability to impartially decide the case or the performance of her defense team. The trial, which captivated national attention due to its sensational nature, featured Arias admitting to shooting Alexander, but claiming self-defense. At some point, her reaction to the court ruling was dramatic, from crying when a ruling was made to a bizarre smile like someone unaware of what would be her fate. The jury rejected her self-defense argument, and she was convicted of first-degree murder. Initially, the jury found the crime to be especially cruel, making Arias eligible for the death penalty. However, the jury could not reach a unanimous decision on her sentence. A second jury also failed to reach a consensus on whether she should be executed, leading to a sentence of life in prison without parole. Before her sentencing, Arias expressed deep remorse, stating she was horrified by her actions and wished she could undo them. Diana Lovejoy. In a dramatic courtroom scene, Carlsbad resident Diana Lovejoy and U.S. Marine veteran Weldon McDavid Jr. were sentenced for their roles in an attempted murder and conspiracy plot involving Lovejoy's estranged husband, Gregory Mulvihill. The case stemmed from a heated legal battle over child custody between Lovejoy and Mulvihill. Lovejoy was found guilty of hiring McDavid, her firearms instructor, to shoot Mulvihill. In September 2016, Mulvihill was lured to an isolated location under the pretense of receiving important documents related to the custody dispute. McDavid, a trained sharpshooter, shot Mulvihill but did not kill him. Before her sentencing, Lovejoy wept in court, insisting she was innocent and accusing various individuals involved in the case of lying, including a detective and a family member who testified against her. Lovejoy was sentenced to 26 years to life in prison, but she maintained her claim that she would never harm her son's father. McDavid, who received a 50-year-to-life sentence, also denied his intent to kill Mulvihill. He claimed the shooting was an accident, an aiming error, and argued that if he had truly intended to kill Mulvihill, his skill as a sharpshooter would have ensured the fatal outcome. McDavid expressed his belief that the jury had made a mistake and hoped for a successful appeal. The verdicts stunned Lovejoy, who appeared to faint upon hearing the guilty judgment. The courtroom had to be briefly cleared while she was attended to, before resuming to deliver the guilty verdict for McDavid on counts of attempted murder, conspiracy, and intentionally discharging a firearm with the intent to cause great bodily harm. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.